And Austin has a bunch of cards in his graveyard. Looks like they had quite the battle over a reanimation spell.
That's often how Legacy goes. It's a lot of turns of me and you each setting up our hands, and then one turn where 7 or 8 spells get cast as we finally fight over whatever it is we were trying to build towards.
So looks like both players, there was quite the battle. It looks like I see a Show and Tell in there, Exhume, and now Austin's going to cast Entomb. And Andrejs does have that counterbalance in play, but he doesn't have the top to go along with it, so it's going to be a blind flip. And it works. He reveals a Spell Pierce to counter the Entomb.
And the Reanimator deck is pretty susceptible to counterbalance lock as far as combo decks in Legacy go, because it's really susceptible. It's really trying to resolve 1 and 2 mana spells. Yeah. So counterbalance is really rough. It's not necessarily the best card against every combo deck, but it is very good against Reanimator. Yeah,
so Andrejs' hand's really good right here. He's got Brainstorm, multiple copies of Brainstorm. He's got a Oblivion Ring, and we know he just drew that Spell Pierce for the turn. And it looks like he might have finally drawn a threat in Vendilion Clique, which is actually quite the ideal threat.
Yeah, and the Miracles player does not need a lot from here to actually win the game, as counterbalance plus all the various cantrips he has to manipulate his counterbalance triggers is going to be enough to beat Austin. He just needs to find one piece of pressure.
Yep. So, yeah, Austin, the Reanimator deck doesn't have any removal, so any type of random threat usually is enough. So Andre, even without a Sensei's Divining Top, because of Brainstorm, he's able to manipulate his library. So Vendilion Clique from Andrejs gets cast at the end of the turn, and Austin just reveals a Terastodon and a Swan Song.
That is a mess of a hand, and I imagine that Andrejs is just going to let him keep those.
By all means.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Swan Song is, it's possible that Swan Song is kind of a risky card for Andrejs to let Austin keep here, but that counterbalance in play plus Brainstorm in hand means it's unlikely to matter very much, and yeah. I think Andrejs draws the same conclusion.
You don't want to risk it. I just don't think you want to risk it there. So Andrejs swings over, drops Austin to 13 now, I believe. Austin is 5 mana away from casting that Terastodon, although he does have the color for it.
Yeah, he does have. He has a Petal and a Tropical, so he's ready to go.
So counterbalance trigger and just a Seat of the Synod. So Ponder does resolve for Austin here.
And you wonder, why is Andrejs there not using his Brainstorm Spell Pierce? It's because he wants that as insurance for Swan Song now. So he's not particularly worried about this Ponder, and he wants to save that Brainstorm as another counter somewhere down the line. There's also huge upside if you happen to blind reveal a 1 and not have to do anything else. So yeah. That's a play that I think a lot of players might look at and say, well, why isn't he just countering it for free? And the reason is Andrejs has basically other priorities he needs to be concerned with.
Yeah, he's got, again, Brainstorm is useful, but he can only use it once. It's not a top. So he has to kind of conserve it for those high impact spells that are reanimated, because this game isn't over yet. It's one spell from Austin resolving could suddenly change the tide here. So Andre has to be a little conservative here to make sure that it doesn't resolve. Again, here's a perfect example of now we can Brainstorm in response.
This is really, you can see Andrejs getting paid off here for this line of reasoning.
Yeah, even though Austin does have that, he has a Swan Song to counter the Brainstorm. But it looks like he's not going to cast it.
Well, he is aware that Andrejs has a Spell Pierce hanging out in here as well from the earlier reveal. So
but he doesn't. Maybe you have to actually, I feel like you have to actually get him to use it, though, because otherwise it's just going to be dead, right? He's going to put a 1 on top of his library.
But then he then redraws the 1, so you aren't necessarily locked out of 1 mana spells forever.
Yeah.
Austin's in a bit of a rock and a hard place here. I mean, if he Swan Songs here, he knows that he's basically giving Andrejs a 2/2 flyer for free, which makes the clock 3 turns instead of 5 that we're looking at right now. And he knows that it still doesn't cause his Reanimate to resolve.
Yeah, so I guess you just don't care about the Spell Pierce really at this point, because you have enough mana anyway. So Andrejs Brainstorms into another Brainstorm and puts that on top and counters the Reanimate. So 3 more, Austin drops to 11, and now he has the Seat of the Synod in play that he drew.
And these Brainstorms are really heartbreaking reveals for Austin because he has very little information to work with. Oh, wow, here we go.
Wow, so Abrupt Decay out of the sideboard from Austin takes out the counterbalance. So now he actually has something to work with here.
And if Austin had Abrupt Decay in his sideboard, I questioned some of the earlier cantrippings when you knew that you're playing into the maw of the counterbalance.
Yeah.
You could have potentially waited for your Abrupt Decay off the top and tried to go that way when a lot of your cantrips were pretty low percentage odds of resolving.
So interesting thing here though, Austin is now at 8. So and Andrejs has an Oblivion Ring in his hand. So it's not that many great reanimation targets for him at this point.
Yeah, and it's actually Reanimator really needs its life total because it's trying to resolve the card Reanimate. So as you attack its life total, it gets to a position where it can't reanimate certain creatures. If you reanimate Gristlebrand, it's just a 7/7 lifelinker, so then it's susceptible to just being plowed or Oblivion Ringed or what have you. So even though it's not trying to go off through ad nauseum or anything like that, Reanimator's life total is a really critical piece for them.
Yeah, so now Andrejs going to attack Austin down to 5, which means that even if Gristlebrand does enter play, he won't be able to actually draw any cards off it to kind of protect it from that Oblivion Ring.
Right, and then Andrejs, yeah, exactly. Andrejs' Oblivion Ring is on, and then it's easy from there.
So now Andrejs has that Sensei's Divine top. Unfortunately, he doesn't have the counterspell in play, the counterbalance in play rather, but he still has plenty of action in his hand. He's got, looks like he has another copy of Endealing Click, which you could choose to cast. And he will lose one of them, but it doesn't matter. And yep, Andrejs Prost wins the 3rd game, moving to 1-1 now with Blue White Red Miracle.